Hey guys, welcome back. It's Missy, and if you're new here, welcome. I am a life and relationship coach, and on this channel we get to the root of the issue and we learn how to heal and deal. So if that's your thing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I would love for you to be a part of the fam. Also, if you guys want to be the first ones to view my video, don't forget to hit that bell button so you get a notification. So that way, one, it helps the channel grow because when there's more interaction, more people will see it and we can help more people. So let's go into today's video, which today's video is on healing from narcissistic mothers, which I have a feeling this is going to be a long video. So go ahead, go get yourself some snacks, go get yourself something to drink, relax, and let's dive deep and get really in depth about narcissistic mothers, the relationship, and how to heal from it. So I have a video on signs that you have a narcissistic parent, which I'll leave down below, which you can check out. But this video, we're gonna go more into understanding the relationship. And the reason why it can be helpful to understand, because you could come to terms with things and understand they are the way they are and it didn't have anything to do with you. There's nothing you could have done differently. It wasn't because you were doing this or you weren't doing this. It really solely had to do with them and their own lack of dealing with their own trauma. I've said this before, but being raised by a narcissistic parent is being raised by a child that's stuck in their abuse. So you are being raised by a wounded, abused child in an adult body. So you have to understand they're literally stuck at the age they were abused at. That is why you will experience things like if they don't get their way, they'll throw tantrums, or they can't communicate their feelings, they struggle with empathy. All those things are things that children struggle with. Also, not being able to self-reflect. They are stuck in that time when they were abused as children. They were manipulated as children, so they learned the only way that they could get their way was to manipulate. And that's exactly what your mother did to you. So when we think about mothers, when we think about mothers in general, we think of them as the more nurturing, compassionate person that you want to go to if you're hurt. Like when you're a child, you're more likely to want to go to your mom if something's wrong. If you get hurt or you're sad, you're more likely to want to go to your mom because she's known as that nurturing, compassionate person. And that's why I feel that having a narcissistic mother hurts a lot deeper than having a narcissistic father. It hurts you on a different level. Because with fathers, they're not usually known as like the nurturing, compassionate one that you go to when you are looking for comfort. That's usually the mother's role. So when you don't have that, when you don't have someone that's nurturing or compassionate or loving towards you, it traumatizes you in a whole different way. It can make you feel a sense of emptiness, something's missing. Because we go to our parents for validation, we go to our parents for love, we go to our parents for safety. When we don't have that, we then also don't know how to give it to ourselves because we're helpless children that rely on our parents for guidance. We then go throughout our lives with this empty feeling, worthless, not loved, not feeling safe or secure. And you don't know how to deal with that empty feeling, so you will go to outside sources like drugs, alcohol, sex, relationships. That's where codependency comes into play, validation from others, overly helping. That's how you fill that hole. On top of that, there's also, when it comes to a mother, there's a very intense trauma bond. Now, when you have any sort of narcissistic relationship with mother-father, you can form a trauma bond. But with mothers, I think that it's more intense because of things like I mentioned, the ideals of mothers, and you were very connected to her at one point. I mean, you spent 9 months chilling in her. She was the one who's supposed to make you feel comforted and safe and nurtured. Instead, she abused you and she gave you this sense of feeling like you need her, where you feel like you cannot function as a normal human being without your mother. So it forms this intense security blanket where it's hard to detach from that relationship because there's this sense of almost like, oh no, if I don't, maybe something bad will happen. I can't trust myself. You constantly gaslight yourself. You don't believe yourself. You don't trust yourself. And that's from that trauma bond that your narcissistic mother has formed. And with that, it can be hard to admit that you have a narcissistic mother. You will be in denial just to protect that relationship because it can be very painful to see the reality. No one wants to hear that their mother was abusing them or intentionally was trying to hurt them. That's the other aspect of, you could go through that denial stage of, oh no, that's not my mom, because you think about the good times where maybe they physically gave you your needs, you were always taken care of physically, because all your physical needs were met. You can't possibly, you're like, I was not abused, there's no way possible. So you think it's not possible because maybe you weren't beat or starved to death, maybe you had your physical needs, but you don't think about how it affected you emotionally. And you don't take into account the amount of times that you felt deep emotional pain, that loneliness, that hurt. And you don't take into account it was from them. They caused this pain. So some people, they immediately may recognize it and know, like, no, I felt from the time I was young something was off. And there are other people that they're starting to learn, they know something's off, but they ignore it or they justify it because they're in that denial stage. And there are times when you have good times with the narcissistic parent, but that's all image-based. It's all because of an agenda, which we will go into. So there are a few roles that a narcissistic mother will play, as well as she has her children play specific roles in her life as well. So there's a part of the narcissistic mother, which is the enabler. And she specifically chooses a child or a couple where they're known as the golden children. So what happens is she picks them specifically to be the most like her, but this is all subconscious because she would never admit that she has these character traits, but she picks them the most to be like her, and she enables them. They're the children that can do no wrong. The other kids may do the same thing and they'll get in trouble, but those specific kids, they can't get in trouble. They're constantly being enabled. They may be given as much candy as they want. They're given the most expensive things. They're picked as the favorite. And they're usually the ones that turn into narcissists because they don't learn to self-reflect. They're not called out. They don't learn how to get along with others, and they just become very self-absorbed. And that is a form of abuse. When you overly give your child, abuse means to overly do something. So when you overly give your child something, you're abusing them. You're not taking care of them. So that's why they turn into narcissists. And also, they don't understand there's consequences to their actions. So they get away with a lot of things they shouldn't get with. But there's another aspect to being the golden child. Since the narcissistic mother puts her child on a pedestal and she has unrealistic expectations for that child, the child then loses a sense of self. They don't form their own sense of self. They don't learn to have a mind of their own, so it then molds them to be a self-absorbed person that doesn't know how to communicate, isn't aware, that manipulates people for their own gain. So they just become someone who is in survival, where they're just thinking about their own needs rather than thinking about everyone else around them. Then there's another role, which is the codependent part of the mother, where a lot of narcissists, they need to be needed. That's how they also feel validated. And there is codependent narcissists. And they like to feel like they have a role. Narcissists like to be the teacher, they like to feel like they're above, and they like to feel like they're needed. So they will overly try to place themselves in positions to make themselves feel like they're needed. So this can cause you as a child to not learn how to trust yourself, and it'll also cause you to be very dependent on your mom. So as a codependent mother, or a mother that needs to be needed, she is someone that she will go out of her way. She will overly cook for you, overly clean, overly take care of you, try to insert herself in positions that she doesn't need to be inserted in, maybe insert herself in your relationships, just constantly not respecting your boundaries and just overly trying to help and fix, just overly trying to be needed. Then there's a role of being more neglectful and more verbally and emotionally abusive, where she will pick one or specific children to scapegoat. They're the problem children. The scapegoats are the ones that she sees as less than, and also usually the scapegoats are the more of the ones that will speak up and stand up against the mother, and she's the one that she will put all of her negativity on, blame. She gets a lot of her supply, getting a lot of her reactions from the scapegoat. So with that, some children, they're fed less, some children, they're given less. These children are definitely 100% more emotionally neglected. Their needs are not being met, or they're just neglectful in any type of way. Like, this is the mother, if you went up to her and you're like, hey mom, I'm depressed, she would say, okay, so what? Or she'd say, okay, me too. Or, depression is fake. So with a neglectful mother, she could be the one that cooks and cleans and does all the image stuff. When it comes to emotional needs, she's not able to be there. or she could be neglectful in all different aspects. Then there's the role of the image with a narcissistic parent. Isn't it crazy that this is usually all one person? And like we talked before, it's on a scale. So depending on the narcissist, some narcissistic mothers are more of enablers and some are more neglectful. It's all different. But with all narcissistic mothers, they care very much about their image. Their image is really important. So they see their children as reflections of themselves, or as like they see their children as extensions of themselves. So what they will do is, for image purposes, they will, whenever their child achieves something, they'll be front and center. Like they want to make sure that people know that's their kid. They're the one who supported their child. They're the one who is the reason why their child is that way. And then for bad times, they may not be there. They don't want to be a part of that. Or if they're a codependent narcissist, they will overly be there and they'll be very dramatic about it and they'll make it about themselves. Let's say you were to go to the hospital for a broken arm. Your narcissistic mother will make it about herself, where she'll say like, oh my God, like he almost got his arm cut off and it was so hard as a mother to see. It was so heartbreaking. They're so dramatic and they overly dramatize what actually went on, but they make it about themselves. Every good moment, every bad moment, it's about them. And with the narcissist, they care very much about their image. They care how the outside world sees them. So with mothers, a lot of times they'll do things that seem loving, but it's really they have a hidden agenda. All narcissistic mothers have hidden agendas into what they're doing. That's why a lot of things don't match. And it's very confusing as a child because your mom will make you lunch, but your mom won't sit and hold you when you're crying. It doesn't make sense. Or your mom will go and, be your biggest cheerleader when you're, doing sports, but then at home, she won't have a conversation about things that are bothering you. So it can be very confusing. And that's why children of narcissists, they'll say like, no, my mother was great. She was supportive, but it was just so manipulative. Everything was just hidden. Which goes into my first point is all narcissistic mothers are extremely self-absorbed. Like I said, they have a hidden agenda. So everything they do, whether it looks nice, it's got a pretty bow on it, and looks, like she's doing something nice, it's really for herself, for image purposes. There's something behind it of why she's doing it. Maybe she's trying to get on your good side. She's love bombing you. She wants something out of it. All narcissistic mothers are very self-absorbed. So anytime she's looked caring, it was because of something else. They are incapable of thinking about other people. They're incapable of self-reflecting. So no matter what she did, it wasn't for you, it was for her. Another thing when it comes to having a narcissistic mother, it's a lot of conditional love. Again, like I had mentioned, the self-absorbed, where she does things solely for herself. When you do something she likes, she's really nice. She's that fun mom, you're having a good time, maybe she'll take you shopping, she approves of you, she's happy. You did what she wanted. She got that positive supply from you. But when you do something she's not happy about, maybe you didn't behave the way she wanted, maybe you said something negative about her, you made her look bad, something happened. This is when she will discard you. That's when she will be really abusive towards you. She'll verbally abuse you, she'll throw a tantrum. She will make you feel like the worst person in the world. She will guilt you, she will shame you, she'll do it all. She will make you feel like you're less than. She will say the most hurtful things to you, all because you didn't do exactly what she wanted. She wasn't able to control you the way she wanted. She didn't manipulate you to do what she wanted. You had a mind of your own. And whenever you have a mind of your own, they don't like that. A lot of times with narcissistic mothers narcissistic parents, both of them, they both will be pretty nice, usually until like 4, 5, 6, when you start getting a mind of your own. Like that's when they're a little bit more fun, and that's when they kind of start the grooming stage of trying to manipulate to be how they want. That's really when they decide who they're gonna, this is all subconscious, but that's when they decide who they're going to pick to be like the golden child, and then the one that they're gonna blame for everything, the one that they couldn't get to do what they wanted, the one that had the mind of their own. And again, like I said, it's subconscious. They don't consciously think that. It's all a subconscious thing that goes on. But yes, it's all conditional love. Unconditional love is like, no matter what you do, I'm gonna love you. If you're gay, I love you. If you decide to do this career path, I love you. You make a mistake, I love you. That's unconditional love. Conditional is, like I said, where if you do this, I'm not happy with you. I'm gonna kick you out. I'm gonna discard you. I'm gonna get rid of you. I'm gonna abuse you. But then when you do what I want, I love you. Like, you're so great. You're the best child in the world. So that can be very confusing because they'll do things that make you feel like, oh, they love me, but it's all conditional. It's all on their terms. Another thing with having a narcissistic mother is you couldn't have a deep connection with her. It most likely felt very empty. When you would share things about yourself, maybe she would turn around and make it about her, or maybe she was really hard on you and you didn't feel like you could connect with her. There was like this emptiness. It was like she was this shell of a person, because she was, and you didn't feel like you could relate to her, or you could get her to listen and understand you. Also, maybe the hugs felt empty. It didn't feel like a really safe, secure environment. You probably felt like you were on edge with her. You felt like you were walking on eggshells around her. There was a lot of things that add up to make you feel like you couldn't connect with her, but there was that sense of needing her because of the trauma bond. Another thing is you weren't validated by her. So she would belittle what you were saying. She would turn it around. She would deflect. She would make it about you. She would make it about her. That would actually be great if she could make it about you. As children, like I said, you feel that emptiness if you don't get validated from your parents, if you don't feel nurtured or loved. So what happens is she cannot validate you. She is incapable of seeing your side. She's incapable of being able to empathize with you, and she's incapable of being able to acknowledge and recognize what you're saying and the things you're going through, and that you're an actual person with your own feelings and needs. So she would do things to make you feel like you were crazy or that you weren't normal, or she would do things to belittle you, dismiss you, make you feel like you're less than. And something that's major is if you went up to her and you're like, hey, listen, like, I'm unhappy about, the way you talk to me or our relationship. If you try to have a healthy, normal conversation, she will say things like, be grateful for what you have, for the mother you have. You're so ungrateful. You're so lucky that you weren't in a shelter, and you're lucky that you're not abused, which is really common for in abusive homes, where they remind you over and over again, be grateful you're not abused, because in reality you are being abused. But they see it as they're not beating the shit out of you. So they're like, oh, you're not being abused. Oh, you're being fed. Like, that's why you'll have that mentality of, oh, I was never abused, because they instilled that in your mind over and over again. So she would, if you brought up anything to her about how you're upset about the way she's treating you, she would always turn it around. She would invalidate you. She would make you seem like you're the problem. She may look it nice. This is really often, especially with covert narcissistic mothers, where they'll make it look it nice. Like, I'm sorry I wasn't the mother that you wanted, or, victimizing themselves and making it all nice and pretty, like acting like they're taking accountability, but in reality, they're not taking any accountability. They're making it look nice. They'll say, like, I'm sorry if you feel that way, but in reality, I'm sorry if you feel that way, but you also did X, Y, and Z. Like, if and but are canceling out each other. She's not taking any accountability. And sometimes it may look like she is, but she's not. It's all manipulation to make things look a certain way. So sometimes it may seem like she's acknowledging you or validating you, and that's why people can get confused. But in reality, deep down, you're not being validated. There's a sense of emptiness, and you can't understand why, because it looks nice, but she's not validating you. She's not acknowledging or making you feel better about the situation. And the last thing I want to talk when it comes to narcissistic mothers is they're very competitive. So you may have noticed with weight, they're very competitive. They may make you feel like you're fat even if you're not. They will be competitive, like with the gym, making you feel like you have to look a certain way, you have to be a certain person. For girls, you have to maybe wear makeup and look very presentable, and you have to get your nails done. You have to look this certain way, and if you don't, you're gross and disgusting. And she will also put on this persona where she, takes really good care of herself, and she will make you subconsciously feel like you're constantly competing with her. And this happens a lot with narcissistic daughters of mothers. A lot of them do form eating disorders or body dysmorphia because of the way that she makes you feel, and making you feel like you have to compete and you have to be the best. So because of this can make you feel very competitive, and it can make you feel like that you need to look a certain way, and you have to care very much about your image, and you care very much about what other people think. So now that we went through all of that, now let's go into how do you heal from this deep pain, from all of this emotional abuse. So the first thing is, like I mentioned in the beginning, understand. Now that we kind of went through more of that, maybe you can get a little bit more understanding about your mom and how she was unhealthy. And just understand this is just the way she is. She was abused and she's stuck in that, and she is incapable of loving you the way that you needed to be loved. She is incapable of being a normal, healthy, functioning person. She's incapable of having healthy communication. She's incapable of seeing your side of things. She is incapable. And that can give you such a sense of release knowing that she's incapable, and you have to let that go. Like, you cannot keep doing the things that you've been doing with her, like trying to have a normal functioning relationship with her, because she is incapable. And you also need to accept your reality. Accept that your mom is not normal and she is not healthy. And you have to accept, this is hard, but you have to accept that you will never have a normal functioning mother, ever, 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 ever. It's never gonna change. She is this way. You've seen it firsthand. You tried to have a normal relationship and you saw you couldn't. You maybe tried to bring things up. You maybe tried to have conversations. You maybe tried to do different things, but you saw nothing changed. She still was that way. She still reacted in an abusive way. Or you weren't able to connect with her. Your mother cannot be who you thought she was. She cannot be who she made you believe she was. And she cannot be the mother that you wanted. And understand, you didn't deserve the treatment that you got. It's not your fault. There's nothing you could have done differently to make her be different towards you. It wasn't you. It was her and her inability to be able to deal with her trauma. We all, no matter what, even if you feel like you never did, but we all have had an image or a fantasy of how a mother should be, or the mother we want. So with that, you have to mourn the loss of that. You have to mourn the loss of your parent. You have to mourn the loss of the parent you thought they were. You have to mourn the loss of having a parent in general. So you need to sit there and you need to just let yourself cry. You need to let yourself feel. You need to just allow yourself that deep pain to come out. You could also write her a letter, which you won't see. You could just write her a letter, just expressing how you feel, that you're hurt and you're angry and you're frustrated and whatever it is, just why, just going through that emotion and allowing yourself to just mourn. You know, I feel like there's different stages that we go through. It's like the 7 stages of grief. I don't remember them from the top of my head, but there's like denial, bargaining, anger, and finally acceptance. I'm missing a couple stages, but it's basically just like that, where you go through all of those stages because you really are mourning the loss of a dream of what you thought you had, or the dream that you were going to have, that they were going to work on it. Maybe one day she would change, maybe it would be different. So you have to sit there, you just have to let yourself mourn, feel, cry it out. Also, there's a part of you where you may need to go through your past pains and be able to nurture yourself through it. Not only do you need to nurture yourself through the pain and the mourning and the loss of your parent, but you also will need to nurture yourself through those past things that you dealt with and be able to reparent. So with nurturing, something that I've noticed is a lot of people, when they haven't experienced nurturing, they can't recreate that feeling. They don't know what it's like. So what I want you to think about is, I want you to think about if you've ever had a person like hug you when you were sad, what that felt like. Or maybe if you've had children and you hugged them and you were there for them, you're like, everything's gonna be okay. You know, that warm, fuzzy, safe feeling, that's the nurturing feeling. That's what you wanna recreate when you're working yourself through these feelings, as well as the reparenting language. You know, I learned reparenting language, let me get the book. I actually learned reparenting language from this book, The Emotionally Absent Mother. I got it in my early 20s, and I was learning about, you know, remothering and, you know, what it's like having an emotionally absent mother. And reparenting is a big, big thing that helps when you're dealing with your past trauma from your mother, from dealing with the pain of your mother. With reparenting, it's basically you're just telling yourself the things that you didn't hear as a child that you needed to hear. Things like, I love you, I'm so proud of you, I got you, everything's gonna be okay. That's a really important one, to feel that nurturing and safe, like everything's gonna be okay, like you got you, you're gonna be good. But I love you is a major one, because that's one that a lot of people, they didn't feel or they didn't hear enough. So reminding yourself, like, I love you, I love me, I love, that's forming that self-love, and that's healing that emptiness that's inside of you. And over time, you'll be able to talk to yourself like that. You'll be able to validate yourself. You'll be able to talk yourself through things. You'll be able to trust yourself. And you will notice yourself needing less of those other things that you've been needing, like validation from others, or you'll feel like you don't have that emptiness where you need outside influences to heal you, or to temporarily fill that void, rather. So it's important to heal yourself through that. As well as your relationship with your mother moving forward, that's something you have to accept. It's going to be completely different. Something that's very ingrained in our brains is like, family's family, like you have to have a relationship with your family, but that's not true. We don't get to choose our blood family, but in life we really can choose our family. Like we can make friends our family. And that's what we have to understand is like your blood family, like you don't have to have contact with them if they're so abusive towards you, if they are hurting your mental health. You 100% can go no contact if they are hurting you. Some people have felt such a relief going no contact and not having their mother in their life, as hard as it is. That's why mourning can be really helpful. Just accepting that they can't be that person, and it's okay because you don't need them, and they don't deserve a place in your life because they didn't cherish you or appreciate you the way that you deserve to be appreciated and cherished. So don't feel like you owe them anything just because maybe they did some things for you, like maybe they took care of your basic needs. Like that's what you're supposed to do as a parent. You don't owe them anything for that. They are the ones who decided to bring you into this world, and they should be making it a pleasant experience. And if they're not, then you have every right to not have them in your life. But if you are in a situation where you can't go no contact, maybe you live with them, you're not financially stable, or they're just in your life where you can't get rid of them, maybe you run a business, whatever it is, or maybe you deem them as bearable, maybe they're on the lower end of the spectrum, whatever it is, like you're the one who determines what type of relationship you want to have with your mother. Everyone is different. You can do low contact, and really what that means is just having your guard up with them at all times. The relationship will not, and it cannot be the same, or you can't do the same things you were doing before. One, because you probably see your mom in a different light and you understand more about her, and two, it wasn't healthy what you were doing before. When you have a narcissistic mother, it's all about protecting yourself. So you have to understand that you're going to have a completely different relationship than most people have. You can't have healthy communication with your narcissistic mother. You can't have that normal dynamic where you share things because they could be used against you. It's a very one-sided relationship where you more so focus on maybe some things about them, but you have to be careful about what you share about yourself. So that's why boundaries are really important with a narcissistic mother. And also it's really important to make sure that you respond to them rather than react to them. So you make sure that when they are trying to get supply from you, you don't show them any sort of reaction. And it takes time. They have to learn how to now treat you, the new you, the you that doesn't tolerate their bullshit anymore. So having a narcissistic mother, like I said, it feels really painful. It's a deep pain. It hurts on another level. But it doesn't mean it's not something you can heal from. You absolutely 100% can heal from it. That's why you need to mourn over her. You need to let go of the idea of the mother that you wish you had. You need to accept the way it is, understand that they are not a normal person, and you need to now have a different relationship. It's really about protecting yourself and just kind of pretty much keeping it one way or just going no contact. And you also need to really just deal with those wounds, and that's where reparenting comes in. Reparenting yourself through the past, and also reparenting yourself through the feelings that you're feeling now. Anytime they hurt you, just making sure that you're really responding rather than reacting. That's really important. The good thing about the bad times when you have bad interactions, it helps you learn how you don't want to behave or the people that you don't want around. So you can absolutely use your mother as a lesson of how you don't want to be and who you don't want around. You always want to just look for the lessons in your experiences. What did you learn from this? And also, let's say like we go through it all and you still can't understand, because some people are like, well, I don't get it. Why are they still the way they are? And sometimes you have to come to terms with, you have to understand that sometimes you can't understand. And also there's a component where it's like grateful that you don't understand because you're not like them and you don't have to suffer in that way. So what do you guys think? Leave it in the comments below. And please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and share with somebody you think may need it. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye, guys. I have a video on signs that you have a narcissist. You can do low contact. Oh, I just sneezed again. Thanks for watching. Bye. Ooh.